One of the things that most of us love about dairy is the texture, that creamy coating in our mouths. It's so satisfying and comforting. But if we want to try and avoid dairy, and there's lots of reasons for that, we can use other options. I mean, there's loads of coconut yogurts out there now, nut milk yogurts, even soya yogurt, not that great for you, but sometimes better than dairy. And one of the things that we can also create is our own version of that, whether we use coconuts or different types of nuts, such as cashew nuts with some coconut oil, or even avocado, having that creamy texture we can blend up and make, for example, a chocolate mousse. We add chocolate to that. So there's lots of ways we can get that creamy texture, also creating our own nut milks or even buying a different type of non-dairy milk. The reason it's good to avoid dairy, for a couple of things. One, you may have noticed that when you eat dairy you start to feel quite phlegmy, or you start doing this kind of cough quite often. That's often a sign of dairy. Having sinus problems, blowing your nose a lot, all those kinds of things are indicators really of too much dairy. Plus, dairy leaches the calcium from our bones. It's the oxalic acid is leached from our bones. The calcium comes out of our bones, gives us brittle bone syndrome. So if we look at other countries in the world that are non-dairy eating or less dairy eating, Japan would be a great example of that. They've just started getting McDonald's milkshakes. However, when they had no dairy in their diet, their incidence of osteoporosis, brittle bones, was 0. And if we look on the scale on the graph of countries that ate a lot of dairy, very high dairy eating countries such as Denmark or Norway, they're right up there with lots of osteoporosis issues. So we see that kind of curve. It's the same with a lot of hormonal cancers, can be very connected to dairy eating, where you don't see those types of cancers showing up in countries that don't eat dairy. So we're talking about calcium. I don't think many of us really need the calcium that we think we do, but we can get that from raw spinach. And calcium really that the people think comes from dairy actually comes from our bones. It's not good for you. There's no country in the world that would say eating dairy is good for you, although it's been part of our teachings, I suppose, through generations. What is great for you are things that have calcium in them. And dairy is not one of those things. We can eat cacao, very rich in calcium. We can eat lots of green leafy vegetables, super rich in calcium. So you don't really need to worry about the calcium part. I think really the reason we're really eating dairy is because we like it. And I think there's lots of other options out there, because really what we want to have is mother's milk, and we stop having that as babies. So I think at that point it's probably good to stop having milk at all.